of small biz, spotlighting the true backbone of the American economy, the true tycoons of business in America, the owners, founders, and CEOs of small businesses. The show's hosts, Austin Peterson and Landon Mance, are registered representatives of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation, a broker-dealer, member SIPC, and registered investment advisor. The views expressed by your hosts, Austin and Landon, are not necessarily the views of Lincoln Financial Advisors. Backbone Planning Partners is a marketing name for registered representatives of Lincoln Financial Advisors. Now let's lean in as Austin and Landon connect with this week's Tycoons.
Good afternoon, Tycoons, and welcome to today's episode of Tycoons of Small Biz. I'm here, as always, your host, Austin Peterson, coming to you live from our studio in Tempe, Arizona, and joined by my co-host today, Landon Mance, coming to us from Las Vegas, Sin City. Welcome to the show, Landon.
Thank you very much. Excited to be, excited to be here with you, of course, but the real excitement is from our guest that we're going to be introducing.
Yeah, nice catch on that one. I appreciate it. So, listen, before we jump in and introduce our guest and talk about what it is that he's doing here and why he's here on our show today, if this is the first time that you're listening to our show, Tycoons of Small Biz, we're a radio program and a podcast that's put together by small business owners for small business owners. Landon and I are small business owners. We also have a partner of the program, Fintrepid Solutions, Ryan Weissmuller. He's a small business owner. And we're actually multi-generational families of small business owners. We believe that the small business owner in our country is truly the backbone of the American economy. And for that reason, we put together this podcast and feel it's an important way to highlight what small business owners are doing and how they're impacting our economy and impacting our communities and families, et cetera. So with that, we definitely have a tycoon on the program today. We've got Tom Donelan with Deck of Dice Gaming Incorporated. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Austin.
Yeah.
Thanks, Landon.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. So before we jump into the business side of things and really what it is that Deck of Dice Gaming does, let's back up a little bit, have you tell us a little bit about you personally. So, where did you grow up? Did you go to school? What did you study? Do you have a family? Do you have children? Whatever you'd like us to know about you personally.
Awesome. And just to be clear, we've got an hour, right?
Yes,
just want to make sure I don't talk too much. Yeah. So thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I am born and raised and currently reside near Cleveland, Ohio. Our business stretches around the world, and we'll get into that a bit later. I've got teammates here in the Pacific time zone. So glad to stop by the lovely studios here and see you guys in person, especially, kind of here in the midst of COVID. But back home, started with a career in consumer products, ended up here in the gaming industry, and kicked things off like you had kids at a very young age. I think I was listening to a podcast recently where we were talking a little bit about that, but married my high school sweetheart, Jenny, when I was 22, had our first son, Connor, at 23, and then just, decided that we're all in, had known we wanted 3 kids and ended up with, I think, what they call Irish triplets. Well, actually, technically, I think that's every 9 months, right? So we had 3 kids under 3.5. So Emily and Brandon came along, and Connor's, he's a young man with autism who lives with us at home today and is working in the community at the local supermarket and taking care of business at home. He does all the maintenance and snow cleaning and lawn mowing while I'm traveling. Emmy and Brandon are off in their careers, respectively. Special ed, behavioral health is Emmy's passion, and Brandon's a data engineer. And I can proudly say that all of them, Jenny, Connor, Emmy, and Brandon, have all been a big part of our success, helping in one way or the other with, making games.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think we talked a little bit about the importance of a support system, specifically the family support system. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago, but it might have been last week where we talked specifically about that. And you're right. You're reminding me of kind of our, connections there. Cause I got married the day before I turned 22. And then, my son was born about 18 months later. So, not as quickly as you, but, relatively quickly. We did then take a break in between the first one and the second one. But yeah, it's crazy to see, how they flourish, the difficulties that they have. My daughter has some difficulties, not on the autism spectrum, but, some of those same types of difficulties, but they figure out a way to work through it, and having a support system with parents who are all in and helping them to work through that is a big part of that. So
Yeah, there's a lot to learn as parents too, helping any child, through school, homework, sports, friendships. When there's someone with a difference involved, it's you get even closer to how things work, how the educational system works, how connecting dots on the medical care front that you may have ignored or not needed to advocate and understand these things. And so we've learned a lot, my wife and I, and Connor teaches, I think, in this context of being an entrepreneur, get asked often why jump in and put a lot at risk. And I look at Connor each day and I'm reminded that life is fragile. He's delightful and has so much potential and shares so much with the world, but he has limits, and I'm fortunate not to have those limits. So I think it's that sort of sense of understanding the privileges that I have and sort of the responsibility to wake up every day to do my best, and taking some financial risk. Well, maybe a lot more risk than I had hoped, but at the end of the day, it's just life, is the ultimate risk. And so the risk of not doing something or living to my potential is something that drives me each day because of all my kids, and certainly especially because of Connor.
Yeah. Well, and speaking from experience, I would say that it's probably a lot more financial risk than Jenny wishes you would have taken, because I know that my wife has had that experience.
Yeah, I think on page 3 of my notes here, I talk about the first promise of many I started to break. It's like, hey, we're going to do this, and here's the plan. Yeah. And then, the plan changes substantially. But, and actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I was first deciding to take the step, my attorney at the time, we were having dinner, and he said, I have one question. And the question is Ginny on board? Is your wife, is she ready to be with you on this? And the answer was a fast yes. We had talked a lot about it, and it was time to. And of course, that was moons ago, and it was a different context. It was a different risk I was setting out to take. So things have changed a bit since then, but I won't forget that question. I've asked it of a few other entrepreneurs. There's that pay it forward sort of. If someone reaches out to me to have a meeting, and I'm always surprised because I don't feel that I have a lot to share, but there are things to share. There's some arrows, in the back and leg and front and everywhere. And so just talking a little bit about risk and your business might be very different than mine, but there's certain shared experiences. And so, but coming back to that question, are the people that depend on you, or the people that are side by side with you, are they on board? Because sometimes you can't do this for the reward. We all aspire to something, an exit, unlocking value. That's what you guys do, and help people and families to do. It doesn't always work out that way. So if that's your only goal, another wise person told me it's how do you then deal with the setbacks, and the long nights where you feel that you might not make it. If your goal is, a particular number, my goal is to create value and create wealth, but it's not the one thing that drives me. And so it's those conversations about family, are the people you love on board? Because it does get hard and lonely.
No doubt about it. So one last comment that I'll make about the personal side, that's just kind of a tie-in that I didn't realize we had, is, you mentioned Emmy working with special needs children or adults. My daughter is studying to be an occupational therapist, and wants to, and is currently working at a facility that works with special needs adults to do job training and different things like that to give them the ability to be as self-sufficient as possible, as whatever their disability allows. So that's kind of a cool tie-in that we've got as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Dynamite.
Yeah. So Landon, introduce Tom and how you know Tom. You guys have known each other for a while before the show as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll just make a quick comment. Tom, you made a comment a minute or two ago about people that approach you and ask for a conversation, and you humbly follow that up with, I don't necessarily feel like I have a lot to offer. And aside from your really cool professional background and in the story that we're going to have you unpack when it came to starting your business, Tom, you've got a really special kind of presence to you that's really kind and welcoming, and you've got great spirits and a great outlook and personality. So just want to make sure that we highlight that real quick before we move on, because I don't know Tom super duper well, but I know him well enough to know that he's a great guy and he's got a great story, and somebody that really that really has a deep passion for what he's doing. So we're really excited to have you, and thanks again for joining, Tom.
Well, thank you, Landon. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so Tom and I go back maybe 18 or 24 months, and we actually were introduced. We went through a program together, but on different aisles. So it was a program that's put on by a guy named Jeff out in Las Vegas, and the program's called Angel NV. And there's two aspects to the program. There is the founder side of the program, and then there is the investor side of the program. And that world, the world of angel investing was new to me, but my experience going through that program was really, really positive. I really enjoyed it a lot. I was a little bit more limited as to my participation just due to the industry that I'm in, but I was able to get educated around kind of the angel investing approach and how to look at companies and what questions to ask and what things to consider, and then learning how to package that all together to make an informed investment decision into startups or relatively new companies. And then Tom was on the other side of that fence, participating as a founder. So that's how we kind of came in connection with one another. But yeah, I mean, Tom, if you want to comment on the program real quick. I know that I've been getting a lot of emails from Jeff, and just kind of more specific to our Nevada listeners, but I think they're about to roll out that program once again, but obviously with new investors and new founders.
Yeah, Landon, I guess a little bit of backstory there is that our company, we're based in Cleveland, Ohio. That's where one foot of our structure resides, and then we have teammates in the Bay Area, the Tahoe area now, thanks to COVID. A few folks fled up the hill, and actually had an office presence in Las Vegas. So I had been co-located pre-COVID. So I think it was March 14th where I decided to unilocate back to Ohio or whatever. Jumped in my car and drove home with a box of sanitizing wipes. But so Startup NV, so being a company that had a presence, a startup company that had a presence in Nevada, we were active with networking, have been and still are, and the opportunity to sort of join this pitch competition. Competitions are tough, right? They're the very wide variety of deal types. But we've got a great story and thought would jump in and tell it. And then unfortunately, very early in the pitching, I think I'd made it to the finals or semifinals or something. And then my mother passed away after a long illness. And so I'm afraid I I put business in the back seat and didn't do too well in the in the follow through of all the due diligence and follow up pitching to the group. But I believe they selected a Las Vegas company that I would have selected if I hadn't selected my own company. So I think the process worked out fairly well, and the angels went through a nice diligence process, and it was interesting as a founder to see the commitment to training. Really, training may be the wrong word, but developing and sort of bringing investing experience to a very wide range of angel investors who had never invested before. And so it was, I enjoyed participating and had to sort of back out toward the end. But anyway, that's a little bit of my perspective on that one.
Yeah. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I'll tell you something, that one of my big takeaways from that was the ongoing and newly found at the time respect that I have for founders as they go through the due diligence process with investors. I mean, the amount of time and effort and resources that you and the other founders had to go through with us. I mean,
it's a lot. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
it
and that wasn't a lot just because of the requirements of that program. It's a lot, period, to tell the story, to talk with potential investors, whether they're individual angel investors or institutional investors. There's the story, and then there's all the details, the data room of everything from cap tables to financial projections to market research. And then I can only imagine as investors the variety of preparedness or depth of the materials available. I will say this, while I missed the opportunity to really put wood on the ball with that pitch, a lot of the work that I had put together as a runway towards those finals really paid off, because I ended up closing my bridge round within 3 or 4 weeks with a lot of the material that we had thrown together with some some angel investors that I think there was not one that I had met through the process, but it was just all tangential, because I'm always out there pitching. So anyway, the process, right? The rigor of being prepared to tell your story and have the foundational details to back it up. It was a lot of work. Wouldn't say it was.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you ran into some challenges, but you found the silver lining, so that's great. So yeah, so Tom, talk to us about your professional background, and then lead into the conversation with your wife, which was around, hey, I'm gonna do this new thing, and this is what it looks and feels like. And then tell us about how you started your company.
So I've got a degree in accounting. Actually, I went to a great accounting program in the state of Ohio, John Carroll University. I believe it's a private university, but always one or two right up there with Ohio State and then a couple others. And proud to graduate near the top of my class. In fact, I had a job offer from Ernst & Young. I'd interned there, and I didn't take the job, and they were a bit surprised, but I was, I just wasn't sure about the career, and I was at an very early midlife crisis of, wow, I've spent a lot of money on this education, and funding my own tuition bill, living at home, buying a car, and driving back and forth, and feeling like my ladder was leaning against the wrong tree. And that's the benefit of interning, right? I learned there, and I would have come back around, I think, and taken the job. I bought myself a little bit of time and took a job with a very small company that was, frankly, it was near my home. I was living with my parents, and it was convenient, sort of commuting stop back and forth to school. And 10 years later, I started at that company as a co-op intern student. They offered me a full-time job while I was still in college. And 10 years later, I left the company as executive VP of global supply chain at the grand old age of 28 or 29 or something. And I'd love to say I was really great at my job, but I was, and I worked hard, and I think I was good at what I did, but it also right place, right time. The company when I started was 45 million in annual sales. And when I left, it was 225 million or so. And it had been sold, the entrepreneur exited to a global conglomerate. And so I was front row seat to what it takes to build value and deliver an exit in the middle market. So 9-figure sale of a company, and frankly, it paid off a lot of those credit cards where the diapers and the formula were being charged. So I think that was something you talked about, Austin.
Yeah.
So just a great ride, and I learned a lot. Actually, the owner of the company and his family became great friends. The owner passed away a few years ago, but together we wrote a book, a summary, just a digest of leadership and what it took to build that company, and had a lot of fun, but I also had a lot of doubts. So here I was pushing, 30 and not sure if I succeeded, because of my own talent or if it was entirely right place, right time. And so struck out to find new opportunities, and found my way into a food manufacturing business that at the time was about 60 million in sales. And here I took the role of, had responsibility for supply chain, but also sales and marketing, which was new for me. And then that company went from 60 to 200 million in 5 years. So, and, again, just hung on. And in both companies, both entrepreneurs, very different styles, very single-minded and committed to creating value, both very product and industry-faced. Learned a lot about what it takes to stay focused and succeed and create value, but and proud to be not just a front row seat, but a sort of inner circle executive in both experiences, and really learn how hard it is to make decisions, how painful it can be when the budget doesn't add up. These are stories of growth and success and 2 middle market exits that are greater than 9 figures each, but also there were, reductions in force, and there were budget misses, and there were, there was some shouting and wailing and gnashing of teeth now and then. It's hard work. And so, I rolled out of that one, and then, and had, as an executive, that company was sold. And so I had sort of a, an incentive basis of, I wasn't a founder, didn't contribute cash, but, was able to take a breath and think hard about what I wanted to do next, and decided to put a small pledge fund together where I lined up some friends and industry relationships who pledged to support me if I was able to source an acquisition, a small company to buy. And we found one very quickly. I had a pretty short leash. I wasn't going to sit on the sidelines too long, and was actually job hunting or beginning to job hunt at the same time. And so we bought, me and I think probably about 6 other folks, we threw some money into a hat and bought a small company. It was bankrupt. We bought the note away from its bank, and had all the math, all the the working capital is worth this and that, and projections and whatnot. And then the one thing we did not project was that 3 weeks later, Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. And the first lesson of business ownership was you can't unbuy something, and it was rough. The first of many promises I broke to my wife was to start spending our IRA to make payroll. This was a consumer products wholesaler. Our customers were Walmart, Target, Walgreens, but they all turned off their purchase order systems. Not sure how many folks remember or want to remember that, those months were pretty awful. So, but I think maybe a little bit of, there's probably an opportunity to tell my friends and investors no mas after 6, 9, 12 months, but whether it was the Irish Catholic guilt of, trudging through this and getting to the other side. I mean, my dad is a cement mason, was a cement mason, my mother an RN. I mean, everybody worked hard in our family. And so giving up on something wasn't top of mind, getting to the other side and having belief in our team and in our products, that was what was front of mind. And we made it through that period. The company sold playing cards and little plastic chips and was sort of adjacent to the gaming category at retail. And along the way, I met the inventor of the dice that are now the foundation of our company. And we chose to make some investments, significant investments, to commercialize the product as a board game for family fun, retail sales, and sold the lights out, 250,000 games in, just a handful of years, which was just not often heard of in the world of board game sales. But it was super cash hungry, and we had one item. It's, one item at Walmart. It's really tough to balance costs and profits, and you need really a portfolio. That approach transfers well beyond just investment management, right? I mean, every company has its portfolio of products and product lines, and we didn't have that. We had one thing, and so, but along the way, we started hearing and having sort of expressions of interest from folks in the greater gaming industry, I should say the video gaming industry and the casino gaming industry. And, if our company was a different size and scale, or we had more access to cash at the time, maybe we would have tried to do two things at once. But there is a saying that, a man with one ass can only ride one horse. And so we decided to slowly pivot away from board gaming and into video gaming. And more specifically, the idea was to pivot into prototyping and licensing and developing content ideas, games, discrete games featuring our IP. And that's evolved a lot since that pivot. It's now we're a full-fledged developer and about to become a publisher, which is very different than making prototypes and licensing those to other people. If the challenge at Walmart is selling one item in the game aisle, cash flow is tough when everybody only buys that item between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Then the challenge in the casino industry is there's a lot of patents and IP, and so folks aren't so ready to just license what you're doing and to commercialize you. So we've had to sort of find ways to double back and continue to invest in ourselves and bring us to the point where we are today.
Yeah. So, excuse me, let's take an opportunity to just kind of describe quickly, high level, what it is that you guys do. I mean, deck of dice, there's different games and so forth. So give us an idea of, where we would find the games, what the game is, and what you guys are doing day to day now, and what you'll be doing day to day going forward.
Today on the market in the app stores, so Apple, Google, you can search on a game called Shake It Up Dice. It's a mobile game. It's a video game that brings to life the patent and the intellectual property that's at the root of our company and our opportunity. And this is one game of many different games that we can create. Listeners can also find it at shakeitupdice.com. So that's the product, and it's available for everyone to download and enjoy. At the heart of it is a remarkably overdue invention. And when I brag about the invention, please understand that I did not invent the dice. So I'm bragging for someone else. But at the heart is a remarkable invention that's a set of 9 dice, which have 54 collective surfaces, right? So 6 sides per die times 9. And that's a perfect match for all 52 cards in a deck of playing cards and a pair of wilds. And so with our dice, every card from a deck is neatly arranged on all of these 54 surfaces. And they're gorgeous. They look amazing. Everybody who sees the physical, and I've got a set in my bag here for you, Austin, but the everybody who sees, they're just gorgeous, but beyond looking neat, they deliver the expectations of the playing cards have set. So the way I've evolved to tell the story is that playing cards, they're so ubiquitous, right? They're everywhere, every 99 cents at every checkout counter, and a lot costing people a lot more than that at blackjack tables for a long time. And it's these things are 1,000 years old. I think the earliest evidence of playing cards being in existence is like 900 AD. It was really the advent of the printing press where the mass accessibility took root. And for 1,000 years, the point of playing card games, whether you're gambling in a game like poker or playing a more casual game like rummy, or having fun with friends over a trick-taking game like euchre or bridge, the point of all these games is to create matches of ranks, so 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, 2 pair, or to create sets of dice. Some people call them straight flush hands or royal flush hands, or in the sport of rummy, it's a run, 2, 3, 4 of spades. And so the inventor of our dice knew that if you have a deck of dice and you throw them and you can't do these things that have been done for 1,000 years, what's the point? If you can't achieve the goals of the popular card games, then you only have a novelty. And so in a fit of inspiration, in one night, the inventor actually chopped up a piece of wood and carved them out in a way that arranges the card faces so that if you throw them, it's possible to achieve every possible 4 of a kind, every possible straight flush, every royal flush, every rank. It's possible to achieve a full house hand. And you really delivered an opportunity to deliver the most familiar game outcomes in the history of gaming with a new user experience, a new sort of action and drama of throwing dice instead of being dealt from a deck of cards. And so our opportunity, if you step back, and I'm not a game player, so I look at this strategically and from a business standpoint, that there are a lot of games in not just the casino industry, but the casual games industry, solitaire, rummy, even Uno is based on crazy eights. And so the legacy of card play powers markets that are together 750 billion. And we'll come back to the markets where we're playing right now, but the ubiquity of card play, the importance of these achievements, sitting as a base are a deck of cards, which is not a game. It's a system or a platform for gaming. It's a way the dice by themselves are not fun. Neither is a deck of cards. It's the rules of gameplay and the social component of how those rules draw people together. That's what makes a deck of cards fun, and that's what our charter is, to make our dice fun, to leverage this patent in a way that delivers the kind of gameplay that delights our players. And so listeners can download one game that we've released, which is best described as Yahtzee or Bunko or Farkle meets video poker. It's just blending familiar mechanics. But that's one of many different things we can do. We can create games that are more like bingo, games that are a blend of Keno and video poker, or games that are very rummy-like or matching like Go Fish. So there's this whole sort of, our vision is to create and build this family of evergreen games over time. And the hard part for us has been deciding where to start. And, so the burden of choice and a lot, our business model depends on our first game better be good. Can't talk about the 10th until number one is out there kicking ass.
Yeah, no doubt. So I will tell you that your description of Shake It Up Dice, right? In my mind, I was envisioning playing Yahtzee, and I played Yahtzee as a kid a ton with my grandparents. We'd go camping and we'd play Yahtzee in the RV or, out on the patio or whatever. And so the description made sense to me before you even made that, that comparison. So I think that, for me, that says that you're on the right track. So I want to unpack a little bit more about what that means. There's options, obviously digital and throwing actual live dice. But before we do that, let's take a quick break. We'll share a quick call to action, and then Landon will bring us back from break, and we'll jump into kind of what the future holds and where it goes, digital or physical.
Awesome.
Hey there, Tycoons. Austin Peterson here, co-host of Tycoons of Small Biz. If you think you have what it takes to be considered a tycoon and you're wondering how you could become a featured guest, please follow and then message us at Tycoons of Small Biz on LinkedIn. We'd love to have a conversation with you to see if it is a mutually good fit, and if so, we'll get you scheduled for an interview. If you're unsure about being a guest on our podcast, but are contemplating selling your business over the next few years and you'd like to know what your business is worth, please also follow us and then message us on LinkedIn for your no obligation, informal valuation of your business. We look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for listening to the Tycoons of Small Biz podcast. And now, back to today's program.
All right, welcome back, Tycoons. We're here with Tom Donelan, Deca Dice Gaming, having a great conversation. Tom, tell us about Shake It Up Dice. So you just alluded to the fact that you've got to have game number 1 solid before you talk about game number 10. So is Shake It Up Dice, is that number 1? Is that kind of your foundational game, I guess, if that's the right word?
It is, Landon, and it has roots, in fact, heavy roots with the board game that we worked to commercialize with the inventor. And I actually want to talk about her for a moment and then run down this trail of the game design. But a woman named Carmelyn Calvert invented these dice, and she was unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, but probably one of the most brilliant people I've ever encountered. And yet someone who lived in the country and had a high school degree, and really just sort of presented as, she wrote an email to me submitting her game, and I deleted it. And it just partly just was lost on me, I think. But, the pitch, the art of, telling your story, maybe Carmelyn didn't pull my strings the right way, but at the time, our marketing director read the email and came into my office and said, dude, did you read this thing? And, at the time her patent was pending, so we actually helped shepherd things along. But she had an idea everyone should have, and it always fascinates me how, we talked about cards being 1,000 years old. Well, dice are 6,000 years old, I think. So these two systems, right? They're both gaming systems, have been seen around town together for a long time. So, putting them together as a chocolate meets peanut butter moment, and Carmelyn had it, and she had this visual intelligence where she could sort of pick these things down out of her brain and put them on. And so she came to me with at least 6 different game designs. She had one in particular that she had been testing on her own with her own budget. And so we worked to build around that. And the Yahtzee thing, it was rolling dice 3 times to kind of put together your hand or a strategy seems natural. It kind of takes the pay table out of the question. I mean, it becomes a more more social dynamic. It puts a little more control in the player, and in a table game setting, it's perfectly natural. And so we ran down that trail. Well, on the digital side, when we pivoted to get into video gaming, it wasn't so clear that was the place to start. To me, and the team that we started to build is amazing. I mean, we've got just an amazing set of folks, some of the most legendary and experienced game design and game development folks in the industry. And so chewing on this, right? We can do a slot machine with these. So you can throw them down, and you can have the universe of results and craft a pay table against that. And digitally, we actually prototyped that, and it looks pretty cool. But is it better than this sort of Yahtzee mechanic? That's a question. And so we spent a lot of time on design and focus grouping and research. But darn it, if every time we didn't have a conversation with someone in the industry on the video game side or the casino side, they would naturally grab the physical dice and throw them on the table and hold some and re-roll the rest. So it's just clear that somewhere in our human DNA is this desire to roll dice 3 times. so we stopped fighting. We've prototyped a dozen different types of games, and I expect that 5-10 years ago, you guys will have seen all of them on the market. But starting with this one, it's classic, and it's got elements of and it's not just Yahtzee. It's games like Bunko and Farkle and Kismet. There's this long tail of roll these dice 3 times. And then there's poker, video poker. Poker is probably the most played game on the planet through time. Video poker, certainly probably the most successful casino game of all time. And so blending elements of that, that's what we're doing with Shake It Up. And it's our early metrics are dynamite. I mean, we're getting some phenomenal depth of playtime and engagement from our players, and delighted with that sort of proof of concept and proof of appeal. But never, gaming is, you don't throw a mobile game out there and watch what happens. It's not like a retail physical product. It's a live service. It's a SaaS business where you operate the product, you run the servers, you make changes to the game, you issue updates. Players always want new and fresh content. It's games as a service, or GAS is the acronym, GAAS. But so what we're learning is, there are some players who love poker and aren't afraid of that dynamic. But how do we, we're sort of steering the game more towards Yahtzee meets rummy, or sort of a blend of rummy and poker, because there's a lot of casual players out there who will play solitaire, play the lights out. And so we want to, through time, make sure this game appeals to the deepest part of the market, everybody who enjoys card or dice games, not just poker players. And so starting with this very natural tendency for people to roll three times to do a thing, our journey is about simplifying that thing, presenting the goals to the player in a very accessible and intuitive and very simple manner, taking the edge off, giving something for everyone, giving something that feels a little bit like poker to poker players, but can be accessible to players who prefer other types of card games. So that's where we are with the product, is really tuning and investing in this experience. I think that maybe to put an exclamation point on that, on the market right now is very much what we call a minimum viable product. It's very playable, very enjoyable, and is designed to prove the very core of the experience. and we've nailed it. We're getting 20 to 25 minutes per day per player. And I'd love to draw an analogy to Seinfeld, who is a billionaire by getting 20 to 25 minutes a week from people willing to sit and watch his sitcom. So our business is entertainment, so gluing your eyes and your attention to a small screen, to our form of entertainment. That's the trick. And so how do we create that near miss? How do we give you the user experience of throwing dice digitally? How do we, how do we blend this poker versus rummy, making the game accessible to people? That's what we're doing now is building around this incredible amount of time that we're seeing from players to make sure we build and widen the net of our audience and build the types of systems that games like this depend upon to keep people for 30, 60, 90, 120 days. There's a long tail here. And so it's building all of those features to keep people engaged. A lot of them have nothing to do with Yahtzee or poker or rummy. They have to do with collecting things, building metagame journeys inside the game. But I'm getting a little technical here, so I'll kind of back up. And so Landon, that was a long answer to your question about starting with Yahtzee. And I dialed back to talk about the inventor and come roaring back to this game mechanic.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. It helps to paint the picture, which is always helpful. So appreciate that. All right, so talk to us about kind of what's going on today. I think you've got a licensing deal with a casino operator. I know you've got some great, really exciting plans for growth. So kind of talk to us about, what's going on with the company today, and what's the pathway look like, going into the future?
We released Shake It Up just about a year ago, and we came to market. I think I touched earlier on the fact that we stepped out on this journey believing we would be more of a licensor, a creator, making concepts and prototypes and licensing those. And then we realized that we needed to be a full-fledged developer. And we expanded our team to put together, the full complement of design, production, and engineering resources. And we built Shake It Up and got it to the market. And actually, the stepping stones to get to market, we had released a prototype via Facebook in 2018-19 that grabbed 500,000 players quickly and proved it was super bare bones, though. We it was like, wow, okay, well, we've got something here, but we've got to keep building around this. And then we turned around and we licensed we call it a mini game, but it's a game. It's the same game mechanic, the same 3 roles to do a thing. It's just a quick play version, and folks you can find the game inside other mobile games. I won't name too many names right now to confuse the issue, but if you download a social casino game, there's games on the market that are virtual gambling. It's not real money. It's fictitious coins. You can go into these games and play slot machines, video poker, blackjack, and in a few of them you can find Shake It Up, sitting there. And again, it just popped, and just consistent user time and engagement. And so these were stepping stones that helped us really round out the design for our own product that we got to market. And COVID came along, and in the gaming industry, if you were on the market and had eyeballs and an audience, that the stay-at-home orders really drove a lot of growth in interactive entertainment. And for us, it was a little bit of a headwind, because getting the team together, executing, building, raising capital, lots of things that are just better done in person and with travel were just more difficult for us. But it did put a little wind in our sail in terms of testing and getting in front of users and having less expensive market tests. So 2021 was all about getting the product out there and finding what it did well and what could be improved. And so throughout this year, we've methodically improved I mentioned 20 to 25 minutes. We happen to know that for people who spend money in the game, it's closer to 26 or 28 minutes. So, tuning our dashboards, understanding the players at a granular level, who's not paying, who's paying, who's watching ads. We have a system where you can opt in to watch advertising to get rewards. Very common in the industry. Some of your listeners may not be aware that that's a thing. That's a way to make money. If I can't get you to buy this thing, maybe you'll spend 30 seconds watching a video to get one of those things. And people do it. And we know who's buying, who's watching ads, who's doing both. And it's and so as we've continued to build the product, we're doing so with intelligence, and we're building with a purpose to maximize maximize the behavior of the folks that want to spend money in the game. Now, I should step back and say, in mobile games, our model is it's called free to play. It's kind of a misnomer. It's really more of a free to install. And yeah, you can play for free if you really want to grind it out. You can just in our game can appeal to players who don't want to spend money. But the game sort of drives a certain type of competitive behavior and a certain type of impatience with a small set of players who are willing to pay $5 a week. It's not a subscription, but the way players consume the game, and I won't get into the technicals, but we offer virtual goods that can help you win, that can help you compete. We sell coins where you can pretend to gamble against your friends. And, these are things people, a very small set of people, but a very important set of people spend money on. And it's fascinating because those players then carry the rest of the players who don't spend as much money or any money. But I liken it to, back to Walmart and retail, GameStop, right? You could go and buy a cartridge for a console or a CD, and it was a defined price, right? It's $14.99 for this CD or $60 for this Call of Duty. Well, what mobile gaming attempts to do, mobile gaming is really a throwback to arcade gaming, where if you remember or have seen, TV shows where people are putting quarters in and just trying to keep going and get to the next level. And that's what a mobile game's doing, except you're connected to Apple's wallet or Google's payment system. And so you replenish what you need and you keep going. And so our game, ultimately, if it costs us $8 to bring in a player, we need to make 10 on average. If it costs us $1, we need to make $1.50. So the industry model is, how do I get these micro transactions, these sort of purchases from this cohort of players who will purchase, and how can I get enough so that on an average basis, I'm making more revenue per player than it cost me to bring those players into the game. So ultimately very similar to selling a CD, except that the live ops part, the constantly tuning the game. So again, Landon, long answer, and maybe I didn't even answer your question, but the idea here is that we have spent the year, perfecting would be the wrong term, but building and optimizing and learning and doing it again, understanding our user behavior and creating a game that can be profitable at scale. And we're at a point where we believe we've done that, where our game is ready for scale. So now what? We are considering going out and raising a marketing fund where we dump gas on the sparks, right? If we're showing that, yeah, we can bring in a player for $1.50 or $1 and make $1.50 or whatever the numbers are, right? There's a profit spread. Let's bring in the bucket of gas. Well, again, we made the transition from licensing and prototyping to development. So, can we just wave a wand and become expert at marketing and publishing? The answer is maybe, with time and money and the right partnerships. So we're considering that. But in the meantime, our story has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And so one of the top casino operators in the industry has one of several actually, through our shoe leather, we've been pitching and sort of keeping industry connections aware of our progress. And one of the top casino operators in the world decided to do a licensing deal, essentially, where we're going to build a version of Shake It Up in their likeness, and bring a licensed product to market, much like a white label solution, but we'll bring their brand to market while we continue to operate and potentially continue to publish our own brand. So our business model is evolving, and that's part of why I'm here out west. Probably not getting ready to co-locate again, but to continue to sort of cement our new path forward from here, and build the partnerships that it's going to take to get there. The casino operator, it's worth, it's a confidential deal until the game launch is scheduled before June. And so we'll be talking a lot about it closer to launch timing or just after. But in the meantime, it's worth explaining that casino operators are interested in the casual market for social mobile video games, because if there are people who are out there pretending to gamble, they would like that market share, because from a loyalty and a marketing standpoint, if players can experience their brands and there can be the right tools and cross promotional techniques to bring those players into the front door or into the real money online gambling sites that exist in states like New Jersey, then it's in the interest of most casino operators to have a kind of an omni-channel or this strategy where they're doing things that are not related to gambling, but are absolutely related to growing their audience and expressing their brand. Yep. And so we begin 2022 with a relationship to bring a non-gambling version of Shake It Up to market by mid-year, but also really excited about all of the cross-promotional games we can do, all putting real dice potentially in the foyer, the front lobby of casinos, putting content on slot machines, getting into online real money gambling. So we're focused on social. We've got an important deal bringing us to market to help penetrate market and social, and from there, hopefully the sky is the limit into these other markets.
Yeah, I think obviously the future is bright. There's probably at least another hour of content that we could discuss on, where you're going with this and what the opportunities are. And so, especially with the launch of the licensing deal around June, I'll just throw out there now, it'd be great to have you back on third or fourth quarter and kind of give us an update on where you are. Cause I do feel like there's so many other things we could talk about. I mean, you guys are a virtual team from the get-go that we didn't have time to talk about today. And so we'd love to have you back in 6 months or so and kind of get an update on where you are.
Awesome. I'd love to do it.
All right. But at this point, we're out of time, unfortunately. The good part of that is we don't have to look at Landon on screen any longer, so we can move on with the rest of our day and look at better things going forward. But we really appreciate the conversation, Tom. We've learned a lot. I feel like this is an area that I know a decent amount about, but there are so many things that you taught me today that I know our listeners will enjoy listening to as well. So thanks for being here. Let's give you a last opportunity to just kind of throw out the websites where they can find you, best places to find you personally, as well as the game and the company.
Great. Yeah. shakeitupdice.com. Shake It Up Dice. And also just searching on Shake It Up Dice in Apple's App Store or the Google Play Store. As far as me, it's Tom Donelan at LinkedIn, just Donelan, pretty easy to find.
Awesome.
And I think that's it.
Awesome. I was gonna say maybe you could get Taylor Swift, but isn't her song "Shake It Off," or is that Taylor Swift? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Just a couple letters off. What's that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it's, I don't know. I don't know anything about pop culture. And so it sounds about right. But nonetheless, yeah, Tom, really enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot as well. And we appreciate you being here and look forward to following your continued success. So thank you.
Thank you both. Really enjoyed being here.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Tycoons of Small Biz, proudly hosted by Austin Peterson and Landon Mance. Austin and Landon are comprehensive financial planning professionals specializing in financial, estate, and succession planning for small business owners. Austin and Landon have offices in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Las Vegas, Nevada, and represent clients in 14 states throughout the country. Join Austin, Landon, and the featured Tycoons live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. right here on Business Radio X and your favorite podcast platform.